Hi, I'm Michele Schuster.
And I'm Chad Blackham.
And we're here with Compliance Talks for this week. And just as we promised during our last Compliance Talk, today we want to give a primer on unfair deceptive acts and practices. And it's a really important topic because it's really fundamental to all consumer protection law. And it comes from, the term unfair deceptive acts and practices comes from Section 5 of the FTC Act. Don't need to go into a lot of details about the statutes, but what you need to understand about it is that it broadly prohibits companies from engaging in unfair or deceptive acts or practices when engaging with consumers. Every state also has a similar type of UDAP law that covers those same type of unfair deceptive acts and practices. Now, Chad and I are going to go into the details of what UDAP means, which is what we'll use for short for unfair deceptive acts and practices, and then give some specific examples at the end. One thing I wanted to point out, and if you've heard me speak before, you've probably heard me say this before, but the FTC, ftc.gov is their website, has some really great materials that are educational for businesses, and this is not an exception. They have advertising and marketing on the internet, and it's rules of the road. But why I like this so much for businesses is it really does a deep dive into what the FTC considers unfair or deceptive, which is largely followed by the state attorneys general. And when I say the state attorneys general enforce these consumer protection laws, I guess I should clarify that there are some states that have their consumer protection consumer protection sections within the governor's office. One even has it within the Department of Agriculture. That's Wisconsin. And so just be aware, if it's not in the AG's office, it's still someplace else in that state. And so let's go ahead and get started just generally with what unfair and deceptive means. And so, when we're looking at evaluating something, we're just going to start with a fundamental kindergarten rule. And that is, if it's not true, you can't put it in advertising. It really is that simple. And what it means to not be true is, you have to be able to look at any claim in advertising and be able to substantiate that. So when we're talking about this body of the law, we really are focusing on, if it says in an ad that something is free, can you substantiate that? Or are there additional charges at the end that are tacked on, therefore it's not really free? So it really has to be capable of substantiation. On the unfair side, it's a little bit different. Because when looking at unfair, the agencies really look at what's the consumer harm, and is that injury reasonably avoided by the consumer? And if it's not, then probably going to lean us towards unfair. And then also, is there any benefit that outweighs whatever the statement would be in that ad? A little bit more complicated with unfair. States look at this in different ways, but really it focuses on that consumer harm. So, Chad, do you want to go into some details maybe of what some common UDAP issues are?
Absolutely. Michele, thank you very much for the introduction. So, as Michele mentioned, UDAP stands for unfair deceptive acts or practices. And if you look at the specific state statutes, if you look at Section 5 of the FTC Act, and the language in all of them is remarkably similar, which is rare for state differences in laws. But if you look at them, they very broadly, and I'm paraphrasing here, state, thou shalt not commit a deceptive act. Now, if you're sitting there and being like, well, that's very subjective, that's very broad, that's very nebulous, you'd be correct. And that's why it gives these regulators so much power in this arena. So one of the areas that Michele touched on is claim substantiation. This is kind of the number one big ticket item, especially for all the marketing and advertising individuals out there. The main thing here is that when you make a marketing or advertising claim, or really any type of claim whatsoever regarding your products or services, and if a reasonable consumer is likely to rely on it, then that claim must be substantiated with evidence. Now, this could be something very simple. If you're saying that your price is 20% lower than competing products, then you might just need something simple showing that it is in fact 20% lower relative to those products. More complicated statements saying that your product is X% more effective than a different product might require some more in-depth studies perhaps, or more comparative analysis. The type of claim that you are making also relates to the degree of substantiation that you're going to need, however. More advanced claims regarding medical efficacy or health benefits require reliable and competent scientific evidence, a higher standard than the regular type of evidence needed to substantiate other claims. So you not only want to be aware of the type of evidence you have, but also the types of claims you're making, because it's going to inform each other right there. So there are also various types of claims that the FTC is given specific guidance and instruction on. The first of these is comparative claims. So comparative claims are very, very common in the retail setting, comparing your price to another, your ingredients to another. Critically, all of these have to be absolutely truthful, as with all UDAP concerns, but also they cannot be deceptive by omission. You cannot say that your product is better or compare it to someone else, but leave out critical key details or information that might mislead the consumer. As Michele mentioned, another big item is the use of the word free, and on this the FTC has actually issued a specific free guide that's available for free as well for anyone watching.
Charge for that.
They don't. Missed chance for irony, but to each their own. But the free guide effectively says what Michele did, in that when you use the word free, the item must be truly free. This means no added shipping, no processing costs, no administrative fees, no ministerial costs. It has to be free. And on the same note, when you include a second item, buy one, get one free, it's important that that item is also truly free. What I mean by that is this can't be something where you say, hey, I'm giving you a free item, but you always do that, and this is a way to kind of try to trick the consumer and induce them to a purchase they may not have made otherwise. Free must mean free. Another really big area is the FTC's Green Guide, which pertains specifically to environmental claims. Not going to go into this one with too much detail, but statements regarding something being all natural, pesticide-free, organic, these are really in the spotlight now and have seen increased scrutiny, particularly through the Green Guide. But the other one I want to touch on, and the really big ticket item that we're seeing a lot of, are endorsements and testimonials. The FTC has issued another guide on this topic, the FTC Guide on Endorsements in Influencers and Celebrities, which is very interesting. It regulates everything from celebrity endorsements to Instagram posts to TikTok posts. Very informative. But what's really creative about this is it touches on a new and evolving area of the law. The most important part that I think everyone needs to be aware of is that any statements made by influencers, endorsers, or really any company representatives on behalf of your company are as if your company is making them itself. So that means any statement by an influencer saying, this product did X for me, has to be substantiated by your company. Now, don't get me wrong, there are ways around this, and that's what the lawyers are for, disclaimers pertaining to that results may not be typical, they might vary, or may not be representative of the typical consumer experience. But it's particularly important to conduct due diligence on those types of claims, because you don't know what those people might be saying out there on your behalf. So definitely check up on that and make sure all of those claims are substantiated, and make sure your contracts are buttoned up as well.
Yeah, another interesting area there is if that testimonial has been paid for by a company, you have to disclose that. And so you can do that through hashtags. You can do it as maybe the product was provided for free for review. That's got to be disclosed, or if a fee was charged to them. So the FTC for a while there, a couple years back, was really coming down hard on any of those that did not have those proper disclosures. The other thing I would say is with all of these UDAP laws, whether it's the FTC enforcing it or the state attorneys general or other state agencies, this is a really big catch-all area. You will find in evolving areas of the law or evolving areas of products, services, sales, those types of things, because these laws are so general, it's a really good and easy regulatory tool for these regulators to be able to say, we're looking at this, we think it's causing consumer harm, or we think there's something unfair or deceptive about what's happening with this. And so you will definitely find that as these new products come out, as the laws evolve. The one area I would say that this is true lately, and this has probably been within the last 2 years, is in email cases. And so we've been involved in a number of these. Clients will come and say, but the CAN-SPAM Act has prohibited any other laws that regulate emails. Well, that's true, but what it didn't, the term is preempt, is the use of consumer protection laws. So the things that we're seeing, especially in like California, Nevada, Washington have been popular areas for this, is that if the subject line is deceptive, meaning that maybe you're getting some kind of free equipment, but you're not really getting free equipment once you read all of the disclaimers, that can be seen as deceptive, or even who that email is from. So if you can't identify from the email from line who that seller is, then that's even been found to be deceptive in some of these email cases. So it's an area I would definitely pay special attention to, and make sure you're reviewing those, not just for canned spam, but for UDAP issues.
And Michele, you touched on something really interesting I'd like to wrap up with, but to all of our viewers out there, you might have seen a lot of UDAP lawsuits and not even realized it. On some previous episodes, we talked about the recent flourishing of Made in USA claims in the FTC's actions against those. And one of my personal favorite, the action against betting market Kalshi, or rather the referral from the BBB's marketing advertising division, because they weren't disclosing the use of paid endorsers to advertise the platform.
Great examples.
Yeah, so these are evolving laws. They've been on the books for a while, but they are ever present, ever changing, and ever applicable.
Yeah. Well, that's our episode for today. We'll see you at the next one.